Hidden Object Guru here, joined by
The Unabridged Gamer.
back to talk more Clone Wars in the third and perhaps most divisive season.
It definitely is the weird point. You can start to feel the growing pains towards them actually trying to, tell nuanced stories, but also there's a lot of very odd bits where someone clearly was criffing the blue milk.
Oh no! Damn! Wow. I think we've just got a preview of what you have to say about this season. But let's get right to it with Clone Cadets, where we catch up with our favorite group of ARC troopers as they are training to be a squad, or wind up getting retired if they fail their training. Yes, it's the guys from Rookies, and we're seeing how they trained and first became a squad. Rookies was one of my favorite episodes of the first season, and it's nice to see how those characters grew and developed. And we get I've been troubled. You've seen me being troubled a lot of times on these podcasts so far by the way in which clone troopers are treated. By the fact that they're treated like machines, although they obviously have consciousness and are capable of wanting their own things for themselves. But they're treated like machines, so it's kind of horrific. And even though the episode doesn't dwell on it, we see what happens to a clone who has problems with his clone. Well, I don't even know what you call it. Like the cloning mechanism that made him.
Oh yeah, the defective ones.
Yeah.
Which
because as we've already known, they're not being aged normally. They are super aging, and sometimes the super aging doesn't turn off, and so you got a 4-year-old man who's looks like a decrepit old dude, which is pretty horrifying.
Yeah, it's like this again is one of those, and the follow-up episode also ties into it. This is another one of those cases where they're taking stuff from Karen Travis's novels and rejiggering it.
Okay.
Because, in her book, she introduced the idea is the way they're throwing these clones at everyone kind of suggests that the Republic does not give a single cark about them. And yeah, they really don't. And I am happy to see that. Weirdly, they did remove something that they then later claimed, no, really, it's there. One of the things in her books was that there were actually Mandalorian instructors, people who had known Jango Fett, who were teaching the clones.
Oh.
And they claimed that there still were Mandalorians teaching them, but they are conveniently never on screen, never featured, and never spoken of in anything.
Interesting.
So it's a really weird thing where it's like, no, really, they were just busy in a different room. They were
always off camera. They were just to the left of the camera the whole time.
They do have instructors, and I'm glad that they do have those in there, but none of them are you're not seeing Cal Scarata or anyone who was a major deal. Fun fact, Cal Scarata was basically meant to be, hey, what if the actor from RoboCop was a Mandalorian?
Which actor?
I can't think of the guy's actual name, but he also played the Man in Black in Westworld, and
Ed Harris was not in RoboCop.
Oh, I thought he was.
No.
Huh. I could have sworn that he was RoboCop.
He is not RoboCop. Peter Weller was RoboCop. I
brain farted there. I'm sorry, everyone.
Totally fine. No one's going to judge you for that. Well, they are, but I will tell them not to. Don't judge him. I could see him as I could see either Peter Weller has the best voice in the world, and I would be happy to see an Ed Harris type Mandalorian as well. But I don't know which one it actually was. Either one of them would be great. That's not my complaint. I just don't know which one you actually meant.
I meant Ed Harris.
Okay, he just wasn't RoboCop. Gotcha.
There were hard-ass instructors, but Mr. Brain Guy is just, kind of only here for this episode. It's a small thing, though. I recognize that. I do like that they at least incorporate a lot of the same thing about how they're not really treated like people. They're just treated like assembly line products. And what's more, how they handle the very idea of, yeah, if they fail, we're just going to flush them down the toilet or make them work maintenance.
Yeah, that was the part that really shocked me to hear. And I mean, I know you need people to load crates in a war, right? Like, you're always going to need people to load crates. You don't just need soldiers, but still, the idea that, they're just going to be essentially tossed away and considered to be valueless if they don't pass it's kind of hard to watch.
Mm.
Yeah, but it's a good episode. I like these characters when I first met them. I like seeing more of them here, and it's good to see the background. And then we follow up with the next story years later, right?
Yeah, the next one. I have permission to nitpick something else.
Oh, no, go ahead. But I just liked seeing them with the aftermath of their heavy gunner having gotten killed in Rookies.
Oh yeah,
I liked dealing with the aftermath for all of them of that. That it's like, no, these characters, they do care about each other and they do have individual identities, and just like the idea that someone is remembering the name and identity of a now dead clone trooper is so huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, someone actually, hey, what about that guy of yours? Oh no, he got killed on so and so. But it's like, they're treated as so interchangeable by everybody that it's really nice to see that happening. But anyway, please nitpick away.
Okay, so the next episode, Arc Troopers,
Yeah.
is an adaptation of one of the first Republic comic arcs, when Kamino is besieged.
Oh,
In the
okay.
comics, it was actually a rather relatively upstanding Mon Calamari admiral who led the assault. He was trying to end the Clone Wars before things got further escalated, whereas here it's just General Grievous and Asajj Ventress want to be dicks to everyone.
Yeah.
My main nitpick, and it's a really core thing here because they center it all around it, is ARC Troopers are not a rank. ARC Troopers were the clone defects who were ironically super effective, but they wouldn't just follow orders by the letter. They had more agency and independent thought.
And that's why they were great special forces troops, but they're not useful in every situation.
Oh, yeah,
because they don't just blindly follow orders the way the rest of the clones do.
Oh, absolutely. They had to be treated as an expendable asset because they were just too difficult to handle, but also they were so capable that if they just tried to flush them, they probably would have fought back.
Yeah, whereas now they're being treated like ARC Trooper is just the special forces.
Yeah, it's just a rank now. It's completely lost any uniqueness to it, so while I'm glad that it still exists,
you're losing the character of it. And the meaning behind it.
Yeah, I understand the growth for the characters, and I'm glad that the characters undergo that growth and are, becoming more involved characters in this whole thing and having a band of brothers aspect. That's really great, but...
No, I see what you mean, that it is just sad to lose what made it so special. And it is a really interesting concept, the idea that there are these guys who... they functionally don't work the way they're supposed to, but that not working can in and of itself be a valuable asset.
Mm-hmm.
The way they are flawed can be valuable for the rest of us. That's a really cool idea. And I am sad that they got rid of that too. Fun episode though. It is a genuinely fun episode. I liked seeing the battle here. The action looked great. So yeah, thumbs up generally to this, and I just like these characters a lot, and I'm enjoying the journey they're going on.
Oh yeah, D. Bradley Baker is having a ton of fun here. Finally not being restricted to just doing things like Appa and Momo. He suddenly, when you give him real characters to voice, that range comes out, and that is lovely. And fun fact, this scenario is also reused as one of the most popular maps in Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Oh, really? That's what the attack on Kamino was. Oh, cool. I remember that. I've heard of that. That's very nice. All right, next up, supply lines. This one... how shall I put this? Every time I know I'm going to have to watch an episode with Jar Jar Binks in it, my teeth just get set on edge,
It's not even just that. It's just for one thing... They very proudly, I remember when it was first being revealed, this whole situation here, the Jedi Master who dies, his name is literally Gun Die.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's...
Wow.
Yeah, and particularly that it's not just Jar Jar, it's Jar Jar and Bail Organa, because the kids who they apparently are aiming this show at, that they're using as an excuse for the kiddier elements, they really love Jimmy Smits and Jar Jar.
They cannot get enough Jimmy Smits. Famously, kids love Jimmy Smits. I know it's ridiculous that this is what they're doing.
And they managed to work the Toydarians in too. It's like, whoever on the writing team who really loved the Phantom Menace, I'm sure they were smiling ear to ear.
Yeah.
They're probably the only person who was just
enjoying this episode.
Yeah, it's just like
No.
This is one of those ones that I forget was even in the show. I legitimately was like, wait, this happened?
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where I was just reading the script, I'm like, okay, I remember that episode, but it went in and out of my head when I was watching it. I totally get that. It is not an impressive episode at all. But yeah, oh my god, just crazy alien nonsense. That's why we love it? No, that was a question, it isn't. Alright, so, Sphere of Influence. Yeah, so once again, a very fun Ahsoka episode. Getting in there, getting her out, doing more things, standing on her own, being apart from Anakin is one of the themes of this season. She has a lot to do on her own, and she's really growing as a character. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like that. I don't think this is a fantastic episode, but I think it is generally, it is completely functional. It does everything it's supposed to do. I didn't find anything particularly, oh my god, that moment was fantastic. But I'm not going to complain and say it was a terrible episode, because it was far from it.
I would say that it needs to be there for moving Ahsoka's story along, and also getting the Pantorans back into the plot again, and having some things happen in the Senate House that aren't completely illogical madness for a change.
Yeah. I will, I keep flashing on, and we'll talk more about this later, just the idea of what we have to do is if we want to negotiate with the... If we want to negotiate the Separatists, we have to unilaterally lay down all of our arms first to show we're serious about peace. I'm like, that's usually not a way to win a war against someone who's attacking you. It's going to look like you're surrendering.
Yeah. There is a few fun things also that shouldn't be noted. The main guy that the family is all centered around, yeah, he's based on George Lucas. George Lucas played him for a brief scene in Revenge of the Sith, and the girl with the super long hair headdress thing, is I believe that is Katie Lucas. They actually based her on. So,
cool.
The rare instances where a show's writer is also gets to cameo again as a character.
That's nice.
And Seth Green gets to have a speaking role as the son, which is pretty obvious the second you hear him trying as hard as he can to do a non-American accent and it not really working.
Well, I still liked Seth Green's robot that last year.
Oh yeah, that was...
The Seth Green robot was a ton of fun. I still am desperate to see Star Wars Detours, but I know that's never going to happen. Well, maybe someday. Let's see how... maybe Disney's finances will get so bad that they have to release that in the hopes of some quick cash. Because people would buy it, just saying. People would pay money for that. Both seasons of Star Wars Detours that never got released. Next up, Corruption. We go back to Mandalore and Duchess Satine. So, does this again...
Sprite bottles!
Well, yes. Yeah, just, such a weird story about, poison tea, murdering people. I'm like, wow, this is a really strange story for the show to be doing. But as a person who cares a lot about how Mandalore is depicted, did this one set your teeth on edge as much as the previous episodes introducing these characters did? Or at this point have you just accepted it?
To be perfectly honest, at this point, it just, even when I was first watching, it was like, okay, they're just not going to use Mandalore in any way that Mandalore is going to be used. Okay, I just give up. Because, they very much emphasize Mandalore as, and I think this was, in the end, their way of trying to make up for throwing out years of storytelling was, we'll use it as a way to do a microcosm and teach kids about corruption and government and stuff like that. It's like, okay, But the Galactic Republic already did that. There's no reason this again. It's staying.
Yeah,
It's the
that's
same
that's
problem.
what all of our scenes on Coruscant are for. Why do we need to do the political machinations on a second planet as well?
Yeah, it doesn't really fit. And the weird Egyptian pirates, like I don't even think they were established before. It's just a really weird thing where it's like I can't even tell if this is a stereotype or if someone just got really, really lazy with their headdress design.
Oh
Because
my
like
god.
I mean, like,
Is this racist? I'm not even sure anymore.
yeah, it's like it hits that point, and I just it's if I'm questioning it, that's probably not a good sign. And
No. No, it's not a good look.
it,
Which brings me to the next episode, the direct sequel, which is oh god, what's it called? Because the first one's Corruption, the second one is
the
I'm looking at my list.
Academy,
The Academy,
we're
where
introduced to Corky.
all right, and this one's kind of frustrating, and I'll tell you why. Well, I'll tell you why it frustrated me, and then you, who knows a lot more about this stuff, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. What bothered me here is I understand what they're doing, like conceptually. The idea is by showing Ahsoka teaching kids and having to deal with kids, right, who don't necessarily listen to her and have their own strong ideas. She's supposed to understand contextually how she looked to Anakin all that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my problem with it is the kids have like legit reasonable concerns to think they have a window into the corruption that's going on in the last episode, and Ahsoka wants to investigate that and is very interested. So like the way she dismisses the kids as being, oh well, it will be handled by the property authorities and you don't have to worry about this and blah 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 blah, she essentially treats them so dismissively that it guarantees they're going to go and try and figure it out on their own, because that's what she would do when she was dismissed by Anakin all the time. And I can see what they're trying to do, saying, don't you see that, like, she can't see that now she's in Anakin's position and they're just as passionate about this stuff as she was. But it's like, I don't really believe Ahsoka would be like that, because she has gone through such nuts stuff with Anakin. And she generally is a much more, like, as a character, to me, is much better at reading people's emotions than Anakin ever was.
Oh yeah, that would be. In fact, I would say yes. It should be inherently a part to her species in particular, because, like I said, the Togruta, their whole thing is that they were hunters and predators before becoming sentient. So
yeah,
ergo, they should be really good at reading everybody.
Yes, and that is the part of the episode that didn't really sit right with me. Just the idea that she would dismiss them so completely out of hand. Like, that just didn't feel accurate to her as a person that we've met, that we've spent all of this huge amount of time with. I just didn't quite buy that part of it. And I mean, it all works out well, and she goes and she rescues them and is like, you guys shouldn't have put yourself in danger, and it's a happy ending to the episode. But it's like, if you don't want them to go off and do something crazy on their own, involve them in your plans, because that's what you always friggin' demand Anakin do.
Yeah, it's here's if I were put in the editing chair, if there was a chance for me to rectify this, it should have been one episode. It should have been one. This should have been the B plot to Padme and Satine's A plot. We just very easily have it so that Ahsoka's off doing this, and then they don't have to delay several minutes of a 20-minute episode to having the two groups split up. Yeah. When there's absolutely no reason for it. And it probably would also sell the message a lot better if they didn't spend so much time hammering it home. But if there is one thing that the Clone Wars really loves to do, it's to beat its point in.
Well, one thing that I think would have been nice had they handled that is that, like, you could have actually seen Ahsoka thinking, I'm going to do this differently than Anakin would and differently than I've been taught. I'm going to involve the kids and I'm going to make them part of the thing. And then when they're in serious danger, she can find out that no, like, they're not trained Jedi. They're not ready for this kind of thing. I assume, because of my own frustrations with the slowness of my training with Anakin, I got into my head that I should rush these kids into something they weren't ready to do. And I think that would have been a really interesting direction for the character to take.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if she
Oh, yeah.
tries to do it differently than Anakin and finds out, well, actually, there is a good side to the way the Jedi do things. It's not just pulling me away from the fun I'm supposed to be having all the time.
I
But
would
anyway,
say that, and also I feel like Satine should have been pushed more because, again, she just is kind of like, I won't do what you want! And
yeah.
the villain just cackles until it's resolved. And often, Satine doesn't have much agency. Like, I feel like they're trying to make her be full on Obi-Wan's Padme, and that
Yeah.
she's supposed to be this assertive, inspiring woman. And instead, it's like, actually, she's incredibly ineffectual, and she at times feels like a Twitter slacktivist.
Yeah, it's like you really got to get her to take some bold positions and then, like, do stuff about it, not just say, our principles are this and we are not going to compromise them just because of the situation. I'm like, great. Give me actionable stuff to think about here, though, Satine.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
give me,
and that's
like, what are you going to do? I know what you're not going to do. I don't know what you agree in, but we're involved in a Star War right now? So I need some, plans on the other side if you just don't want to do that. So yeah, that is a problem with the character. All right, next up, Evil Plans and Hunt for Zero, where we follow up on the freeing of Zero storyline with
yeah.
Zero the Hutt. And as you said, them quickly dialing back and making it so Zero the Hutt has a girlfriend. I'm like, oh, okay. So you regret all of the Truman Capote stuff in his
Actually,
first appearance.
you jumped ahead there.
Oh, I did?
Jumped
Oh, you're
over
right. No, I
Assassin.
jumped ahead. This is just... Okay, you're right. I jumped over Assassins. Sorry, let's do Assassins, then we'll do Evil Plans and Hunt for Zero. So yes, Assassins.
Which
Yeah. I was sad Aura Singh... I mean, Aura Singh, I didn't know she was coming back. And weirdly, I was kind of sad she came back because she had such a good death last season. Like, I thought it was a nice roundup for the character and her role as part of Boba Fett's journey. For her to get blown up then, and for them to undo and just like, oh no, she's fine. Like, oh, okay.
Well, to be fair, that seems to be kind of one of her tricks, that she's incredibly hard to kill. In both
I get that.
timelines, it's kind of a thing, but
Right.
in particular in this new timeline, they really go out of their way to be like, no, really, she's dead. And then it's like, ah, ha, ha, ha. Like, even in Solo, they backtrack at the last minute when Beckett's like, well, I pushed her. I'm assuming the fall killed her. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so again, she's probably not dead. You just put her in a closet until someone wants to use her again.
It's kind of frustrating, but I mean, as you said, it's part of the character's charm is that she keeps coming back. Like, I understand that intellectually, but from a storytelling standpoint, I would have really loved to just give her a good death and then move forward with the story rather than just continually bringing characters back.
Oh, absolutely. And realistically, if they had gone that route, I would have gone so far as to be like, we know that Django gets his helmet from his dad. It would have been amazing if, like, he got the
Boba
blaster if Boba had gotten a blaster or something from Aura.
From Aura Singh, yeah.
So that slowly you realize that everything that's encompassing him by the time
Exactly. Yes. These are all of the steps that are gradually turning him into the Boba Fett who we will know and love later. Yeah, so that would have been nice, like that. I mean, it's not a huge deal. It's not a big problem with the episode by any state. I mean, she's the actress does a really good job. There's some fun action, but it's like I just thought the character had such a good off ramp, that I would have liked to see them stick to that. But hey, that's me. I might be the only person who feels this way. But yes, Evil Plans and Hunt for Zero. It's nice to see a R2D2 and C3PO episode. I like seeing them have something to do for once in a while. They seem to only do one episode about them per season generally, or a two-parter when they had R2 battling the evil R2, which was actually very stupid but a lot of fun in the first season. But yes, Zero is, it's just so weird that it's like, no, Zero's straight. Who said Zero wasn't straight? I'm like, is this something you really, like, you made the mistake of having the Truman Capote Hutt, okay? Just own it. Like, for you to awkwardly try to confirm that he is, in fact, not gay is a very weird way for you to go, especially since he's a slug monster, the reproduction of which I have no idea how it works.
It's asexual. They don't need a partner. They can do it on their own.
So there you go. Why on earth are you like going out of your way to? Oh no, he's got a girlfriend. He's no chance that this one's gay. I'm like, but he's a slug. Does it really matter who or what he's into? What we objected to was the Truman Capote Faye, villain. Like the effete Faye villain being like a ridiculous stereotype. That's what we objected to with Zero, not having a gay character in Star Trek. In Star Wars. Sorry about that. Although, I mean, Star Trek only barely beat Star Wars to having gay characters. It was Star Trek was not good about it either.
Yeah, they had some growing pain there, just a bit.
All right, but yeah, as a two-parter, it's always nice to see Cad Bane.
Oh yeah, it is. It's like I think it can be certifiably said that no matter what, whenever Cad Bane shows up, an episode just immediately sucks less. No matter how ridiculous the plot, no matter how contrived everything else, Cad Bane is just having fun with it, and you're thankful that he enters the room.
Oh god, yeah. He's just this crazy, over-the-top villain who's having a blast. Like, the voice actor's having a blast. They even seem to animate the character as if he's enjoying being him. Like, I really love this character, love the presentation of him, love every twist and turn he's had. Yes, 100% more Cad Bane, please. Although I know there would be a point at which I'd be like, okay, that's too much Cad Bane. I'm complaining because I'm getting too much of what I want. I'm sure that'll happen eventually, but it hasn't happened yet. All right.
That doesn't happen, but for our next one, which concludes Zero's bit...
Yeah.
Oh boy, howdy, do we have another one of those. Well, this is completely different than how it used to be.
Explain this to me. Okay.
Okay, so, Quinlan Voss, the Kifar Jedi with the facial tattoos and everything, who they're playing up as Space Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
This is not Quinlan Voss. The only bits of Quinlan Voss that are still in this character are that he takes on some of the more tricky missions that the Jedi Order doesn't want to openly acknowledge, and he and Obi-Wan have something of an awkward camaraderie that's a bit begrudging.
Right.
Those are literally the only things left.
Oh,
the actual Quinlan Voss in the comic books was one of the major characters Dark Horse expanded upon greatly. He was one of the elements from the expanded universe that got incorporated into Revenge of the Sith. He was even going to have a near-death rather than an outright death scene during Order 66. He trained Aayla Secura. He actually is there in the Phantom Menace in the background as well. And just like, he is essentially the Jedi's James Bond and Jack Bauer at the same time. Like, he is brutal. He is the Jedi who swears, drinks, and will smoke some spice. He actually has a romantic interest in his storyline where it's very will they, won't they for a fairly long time.
Oh and he God, was for great.
The last he was one of the only Jedi to survive Order 66 who was a legitimate master. And he even did the whole being a double agent for the Confederacy. He actually infiltrated their ranks as a Dark Jedi and participated in a number of things, culminating in the Battle of Saleucami, which is how he gets mentioned in Revenge of the Sith. So, like, it's this huge deal, and their response to all of this is, hey, what if he was Jack Sparrow with a lightsaber?
Wow, I'm really disappointed now.
Yeah, it's like
that
this
sounds so much cooler than what they did.
It's amazing!
Oh, how do you mess up a character that good?
I don't know.
And it's not even hard. Like, it would still work fine for the audience. That's the crazy part. It's not like kids couldn't take that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's what the kids already did. That's the thing. They put him on the cover of comic books and he would sell it.
Oh my god. Okay, well now I'm really sad. That's ridiculous. Oh man. All right, let's move on to Heroes on Both Sides. Where we get into how the economy of it works, and they try to do a story about the American, like, well, the global, but caused by America, banking crisis of 2008. You know, they're like, we need to do a super topical episode. Let's talk about how the banking clan wants to be, start trading reckless derivatives, and that's the only way they'll fund our war. Like, okay, that seems out of left field for Star Wars, but why not? Like,
no, well, there was one attempt back during the Marvel days where they're like, okay, let's try and that's where the banking clan comes from, by the way.
Oh, really?
George did not actually come up with them, but
Okay.
there's been several attempts to make how do the finances in this galaxy work interesting. It never has come together. I will say, though, I am glad that they tap into a... sorry, hold on one second.
It's okay.
Hello?
So, you were explaining where the banking clan originated from.
Yeah. They came out of Marvel Comics trying to come up with it, which led to a rather hilarious episode where basically Princess Leia and Darth Vader were being very passive-aggressive towards each other, trying to get funds for their respective factions.
Okay.
And yeah, like I said, they've never been able to make it not lame, and I think even the recent Acquisition has done a similar thing where they're like, no, really, everyone has to fight for, more funds for the war. And I think the closest anyone has come to addressing this as a theme and it not feeling like utter garbage was actually The Last Jedi, which I know someone in the comment section is going to be annoyed about me saying, but I mean, come on, that's the only one where we see these opulent military suppliers actually, making good on their bank and having a purpose for why this is all continually happening over and over and over again.
Yeah. But that being said, the issue I had with that scene in The Last Jedi is that, like, it flies in the face of everything we know about the world of Star Wars to suggest that a private corporation is building both TIE fighters and X-Wings and selling them, or like a guy...
Oh, yeah.
that a guy is, like, buying up TIE fighters and X-Wings from the people who make them and selling them to the different sides of a conflict. I'm like, yeah, I think they have their own shipyards.
Oh, yeah, no
Pretty sure
question.
the Empire has its own shipyards, guys. Yeah. That was my issue.
Oh, yeah, no, that's totally fair. It's like, and I'm saying that on the grading scale of attempts to address this.
Hey, you know what? My thing is, as long as they don't go the J.K. Rowling route and turn it into offensive space Jews, I'm completely happy.
Yeah,
Like,
that would be...
There was no racial criticism and offensiveness in the banking clan that I noticed the way J.K. Rowling did with hers. With her magical bankers.
Yeah.
It was pretty offensive. Turns out she's always been awful. It's not just a
Yeah.
recent thing.
Yeah.
But yes, so seeing them fight, like, the banking clan trying to make it so they can screw over their investors, and they're like, oh, well, if you let us screw over investors so we can make money ourselves, we'll gladly pay the taxes necessary to keep the war going. And I'm like, I don't know if, like, I understand why you want to criticize the way banks operate, because it deserves criticism, but I just don't know if this is the right venue for it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely... It's really weird and out there, and I think it's one of their attempts to tie into their whole secrets revealed subtitle for the season, and
Yeah.
I'm not really sure that many secrets are actually revealed.
Well, in the same way last year was Rise of the Bounty Hunters, and there were like 2 episodes about bounty hunters. Well, no, 2 episodes overall. Obviously, both of those episodes were multi-parters, but I'm saying 2 stories involving bounty hunters.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, they were both multi-part stories, but still, guys, how is this Rise of the Bounty Hunters?
Yeah.
Also, why are you using the term bounty hunter and mercenary interchangeably? Because all of the work that the quote-unquote bounty hunters did was in the context of them being mercenaries. They were generally not seeking bounties.
Yeah. I will say this. I do like there's one thing on the heroes on both sides, and
Oh, yes.
all they're going there. I do appreciate that they are trying to establish something that was in the lore for a while, and that I really liked is that the Separatist Alliance is always portrayed as these like cackling villains, but the reality is it's not the entire government. It's more their military branch is really manipulating all of them, whereas the actual Separatists are basically the exact same people who would later make up the Rebel Alliance. They just recognized the Republic was corrupt and wanted out of it, and were completely unawares that they were being used as an excuse to commit war atrocities.
Well, that's the thing that surprised me most about this episode, and I think by far the most interesting part about this episode is the never-before-mentioned fact that there are completely, reasonable politicians on the side of the Separatist Alliance who want completely understandable things. All we ever see are the guys from the Trade Federation who just love throwing throwing armored divisions at everything all the time. We almost never get, okay, well, what if they're rebelling, what exactly do they want? What would they be happy with? And this was the first touch on that. Like I said, the banking clan stuff didn't interest me that much, but actually getting a slight look behind the veil of the politics of the Trade Federation and the Separatists was more interesting, and finally you're making a case for why someone would join the Separatists.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if, as you said, you didn't really know. Right? And then we get to Pursuit of Peace, the episode I was joking about previously, which was like, if we just completely disarm our side, we'll get peace. Like, that ain't how Star Wars work, guys.
I think it could be safely said Pursuit of Peace is just... I don't think there's anything that really redeems it.
No, it's a complete lack of understanding of how politics and war work, and it especially makes Padme look unbelievably naive. Like, I know you don't want to be at war, but you are at war, and unless you are arguing for terms of surrender... that's if you want to argue for terms of surrender, you can do that, but don't act like unilaterally disarming your side is going to help the war go better. Like, do you think that if we'll just stop having clones to reinforce us, obviously then the Separatists will be willing to come to the table if we look weaker? Like, it's just strange. Although I would like to see, and I mean, we haven't really seen tons of negotiations about the war, because in real life wars, and this is something we haven't really seen at all, in real life wars, even when two sides are fighting with one another, they are in diplomatic communication with one another as well to, to allow for the possibility that one side is going to demand the surrender of the other. Like, there are always open lines of communication for them to talk to each other, but you really don't get the sense that's going on in this world.
Yeah, weirdly, that's only a thing that happens in the Phantom Menace. Like, in the Phantom Menace, everyone is actually directly talking to each other. No other entry does that.
Yeah. And that stops, and it's kind of not believable that it stops. Because I feel like that would remain a priority pretty much for everyone.
Yeah.
Right, so did not really like Pursuit of Peace. Next up, Nightsisters.
Oh gosh, okay. Can I take point on this one?
Please.
First of all, how cripping dare you? You dung-heaping Nervods. You make us go almost 3 seasons with Asajj Ventress looking like some possessed zombie raver. You finally bring back her classic look that everyone loved. That is the reason she even exists as a character. And it's basically there for 2 scenes. And also, extra screwy thing, this is back when it was still technically trying to connect with the rest of the expanded continuity, retconning Ventress's entire arc from the Republic comics, while still at least you're using her origin story in the game that you did actually research it, therefore just kind of throwing it out the window. And then, yes, I'm glad that the Nightsisters were brought back. They actually established them earlier for the show in a tie-in game and everything. But then, what then follows then happens to the Nightsisters, and what happens with Savage Opress just basically goes, yeah, well, what if that, but a really very narrow understanding of it. I
Okay.
have feelings.
Clearly. First off, I just want to say, as someone who didn't know about any of this stuff going in, I just like the name Savage Opress.
Oh, it is
I
so
love that
Star
guy.
Wars.
It's like the most ridiculous, over-the-top, stupid George Lucas name ever. Savage Oppressor.
Oh, that reminds me. By the way, the only
Yeah.
reason he exists is because George Lucas wouldn't let them just bring back Maul.
Really?
Seriously. The only reason, and this is contextual, I'm sorry, this is a bit of a spoiler, but he's in the advertising for everything, and you already know he's in Solo.
I saw him in Solo, and I know he's in Rebels. Don't worry, I know he's back.
Yeah. Do you want to know why Maul, he eventually allowed them to bring Maul back?
I'm desperate to know why they eventually allowed.
Because the Phantom Menace 3D was going to be coming out soon, and he wanted to promote it.
No,
that's literally the only reason George Lucas eventually let them use Maul.
Oh my god! Like literally the best piece of character design, maybe in all of Star Wars. Like everything about Darth Maul looks fantastic. And they were like, no, we'll just throw him away after one movie. No! We love him! We want more Darth Maul! We love that his voice was done by Peter Serafinowicz. Although Peter Serafinowicz does not come back to keeping Darth Maul, which really makes me sad.
Yeah, it's...
He seemed to have a good relationship with Star Wars, too, so it's weird that they didn't ask him to come back, or maybe he couldn't make the time, but... It would have been great if he could have been Darth Maul when he comes back on the various TV shows. I mean, hell, in the last movie, they just let Ray Park do the voice. And I'm like, ooh, that was not ideal.
Oh, in Solo?
Yeah, in Solo. It's just
Ray
Park doing the voice. Oh, it was Sam Witwer.
Yeah, Ray Park.
I thought it was Ray Park.
Ray Park just...
I assumed just put on the makeup. Okay.
Yeah, he apparently did the lines, but then they dubbed him over. Which he was not super happy about.
I can imagine, you know. Way to go. I like how much work Sam Witwer gets from these people. Like, way to go,
yeah,
Sam
that is
Witwer.
nice.
Yeah, they keep bringing him back because they were very happy with him in The Force Unleashed, I guess. It's pretty cool, actually. All right, so yes. But yeah, Savage Oppressed. It's kind of awesome. And this is a whole episode about why the dark side is not a functional governing body. Because it's like, if you have to be worried that everyone who works for you is going to try to kill you and take over all the time, you're never going to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
You're just not. It was like the terrible system. I mean, it's exactly like how things were run in, what do you call it? The Riddick movie, Chronicles of Riddick, where it's like, the necromongers. You constantly have to be worried that everyone working for you is going to murder you. Although in that place it made even less sense because they all wanted to go to the Underverse, but only one of them knew how to get to the Underverse. But still everyone kept trying to kill him because they wanted to be in charge. But I'm like, but you don't know how to get to the Underverse, Carl Urban. You can't even express confidently what an Underverse is. I watched that movie 3 times. I still don't know what the Underverse is. But you want to get there, and you want to keep trying to kill the only guy who knows how. It's a very weird movie, is my point. An unusually weird movie that I love, but it's incredibly weird. Mm-hmm. All right, next up. Yes, Savage. And it's just the fact that they pronounce it Sauvage Oppress.
Oh, they draw it out every time. I have to believe that is intentional. I have to believe that they were going for campy as hell.
They know that this is the campiest thing they've ever done on this show. And that's saying something.
Yeah, that really is.
It is not a show that is scared of camp. So
yeah.
They know how ludicrous Savage Oppress is. And they are like bathing in how ridiculous he is. They love it.
And then they just spend like that's it. It's like I know it sounds like we're jumping around, but like for the next few episodes, it really is basically just Savage Oppress is here, and he's your new favorite character.
I know.
That's really the summary of almost all the episodes. It's like he kills some Jedi, he kidnaps a dude. That's just they just give him they traded the same. I think they really were trying to recapture the same energy that they managed to. I wonder if possibly by accident with Cad Bane, and just, it's like, okay, so if we make our villain just really effective, someone might actually care about what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And still, no one thought to do that with General Grievous.
That is strange. Yeah, General Grievous, the guy who just fails over and over and over again.
Like, why
he
is
just
not
can't
Savage the
stop
general
failing.
at this point?
I know. And like the only reason that they're still keeping this General Grievous around is because they've already established him in Revenge of the Sith, so he has to be back as a general running things for that. But they've kind of locked themselves in with this character who just can't stop screwing up. You're a weird guy, General Grievous. We love you, but you're a weird dude. All right, now, so after the Savage Opress trilogy, which again ends on a very happy note for the audience, promising the return of Darth Maul.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice, that they're like, yeah, Darth Maul's going to be back. We know we were forced to do this, guy, but trust us, you're going to get Darth Maul back at some point. So that was a very happy ending for us, the audience, I think. We get to the most baffling episodes that this entire series has done, both on their own and relating to the greater issue of how the world of Star Wars works.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so now I'm gonna...
what is this Planet of the Force thing? What is this?
So I want to start off by saying Mortis never existed in anything before now. They try. Here's the thing. This was one of the few instances where they went so off the rails that the expanded universe writers actually retroactively tried to fix it for them with the Fate of the Jedi novel series.
Okay.
They intentionally incorporate Mortis to set up what is easily one of the best villains of the original expanded universe, Baeloth. She's basically what if Cthulhu and Satan were combined.
That sounds badass.
Yeah, it really is. She really is just like one of the best villains of the thing. But regardless, Troy Denning in particular really was just like, okay, I see what you're going for here. Let's try and make that actually work with everyone else. Because starting, so back when the Marvel comics were originally going around and they had a lot more free will to do things, they came up with this idea called Celestials, who are kind of like demigods. And there's been various takes on the Celestials. Sometimes they're almost like childlike but immensely powerful. Sometimes they are very knowingly, clearly meant to be like essentially Force gods. And for some reason, they decided to come up with the most heavy-handed metaphor for the prequel trilogy and make 3 episodes about that for what, as you will remember, was summarized basically in a single spiritual awakening for Anakin at the end of the micro series. Because that's really it. This is what I meant back then when I said they take that like 5 minutes and they stretch it out for a solid hour.
Well, like his whole journey on the planet of the dog people, right? Like covers all you need to know about the journey of Anakin losing his, humanity, whatever they call their species, right? And picking power over ethics.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all there in that one episode, and it's really well done. And then this is like 90 minutes, well not 90, but like 70 minutes to get you to the same place.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, the light side represented character has fallen, and oh, the dark side one did, and the father, and oh, it's also tragic, and we got Liam Neeson back for this.
That's the part that blew me away. I'm like, wait a minute, that's actually Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
He's actually come back to Star Wars.
Which, for the record, is one of the second continuity breaks they have with Revenge of the Sith. First, Revenge of the Sith established that Grievous and Anakin had never met before, which they completely throw out. But also, Obi-Wan's not supposed to know that Qui-Gon Jinn can come back through the Force until at the end
of the last thing that happens in that entire movie is Yoda being like, "Hey, just FYI, Qui-Gon Jinn has learned how to communicate from the other side, to recombobulate himself into a Force ghost who can talk to you, and if you go hang out in the desert for a couple of decades, he'll teach you how to do that too." Like, that's literally the last thing that happens. And he's so surprised and so happy to find out that he's going to hear from Qui-Gon for the first time in 15 years. So to have him here, like, on one level, I'm super happy to have Liam Neeson willing to come back to Star Wars. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like this breaks some continuity a little.
Oh, it breaks a crap ton of it. There's no clear reason for why this had to... This is the definition of, I don't know why you felt you needed to tell this story. I don't understand why we needed this story told. And
especially because they're doing a thuddingly literal exploration of the scene of Anakin turning his back on the Jedi and deciding to go his own way. Like, that's been the whole arc of his character. You don't need to do a whole episode about him literally rejecting a person who represents the Force.
Yeah, not only that, but just... There was another thing that I also want to say that I really was out of left field. Like, there were a lot of people early on with the show. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you out. Just like this, so I don't want to forget this. The whole bit with Ahsoka being with the dark side, a lot of people originally figured, okay, maybe that's what happens to her. Because, again, this apprentice that never existed before suddenly is here, and it's like, how exactly are you going to explain her not being there? And a lot of people are like, well, if she's Anakin's apprentice, she's more primed than ever to fall to the dark side. Mm-hmm. And it actually would set up a precedent for him taking on Starkiller later, because it was still in the same continuity at that point.
Right.
And they even teased it. Like, I remember as a kid watching this show, and it's like they were teasing Ahsoka going to the dark side with this episode. And it's like, oh yeah, no, it's a magic spell.
Yeah. Oh, that's so disappointing. All right, so, yes, then we get on to The Citadel, which is just a raid heist action episode. And what it features is a ton of the guy who will grow up to be Grand Moff Tarkin.
Oh, yeah, and I will say, overall, I don't have an issue with the thing. I feel like it takes way too damn long. Yeah. This show has a serious pacing issue. Like, in revisiting, it's like, seriously, you're not an art house film. You can move things along a little faster. Action is best when you don't constantly stop and keep talking. And
and honestly, like, it's not like the stories here are so complicated that the kids watching it need it over-explained to them. Like, we get who the good guys are, we get who the bad guys are, and right away, you show a Jedi being kidnapped and tortured, we know what the stakes are. So just get to it, guys.
Yeah, and there is one more thing, though, that this also throws into serious flux, and that's the Jedi who, spoiler warning, dies. He was actually alive post-Order 66. In a novel series that literally had come out like maybe a year or two beforehand. So it's not even like it was old lore that, yes, this Jedi Master survived. It's like, yeah, but we just decided to kill him. It's like, okay.
That's such a weird choice.
Why did it have to be? There's so many instances where it's like, why did it have to be X? You have
and as you're right, why did it have to be 3 episodes?
Yeah,
it probably did not have to be 3 whole episodes. Like, they did not need that much space to tell what's fundamentally not a particularly complicated story.
It is still fun, and Tarkin and Anakin getting along, I love that. I love seeing Anakin and Tarkin interact because it explains and informs their emotional relationship in A New Hope more. Yeah.
I was about to say in Star Wars more, but yes, A New Hope is what we officially have to call it now. But yeah, it does, because these guys have a legit history, and that is, I think, the best thing to come out of these 3 episodes, is suggesting that, yeah, these guys knew each other, they liked each other, they worked okay together. Like, so it's not crazy, because everyone likes to say, well, if this guy's the Emperor's second in command, why is he taking orders from Grand Moff Tarkin in the first movie? And the answer is, because Darth Vader is not a planner or a military commander. He's a guy who goes out there and he kills people for the Emperor. Like, that's his job. Grand Moff Tarkin, you need guys to run the facilities. You need guys to be in charge of payroll. You know, you need guys to give orders and be in charge, and that's what Grand Moff Tarkin is for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when it comes right down to it, Darth Vader, awesome guy, impressive fighter, great pilot, kind of just a goon.
Yeah,
But fundamentally, his
absolutely.
job is to kill people for the Emperor. He is the Emperor's assassin. He's not in charge of things.
Mm-hmm.
He is the enforcer.
And I love that there is like a mutual respect even between them because they do recognize each other's strengths. And that's something that I am glad to say that across everything I've seen from both timelines, they at least understand that Tarkin and Vader, even when they've been pitted at odds with each other, they actually have respect, whereas most of the military commanders, Vader just assumes they would cower and hide. Tarkin is one of the few who doesn't, and that's a big thing to Anakin / Vader.
So, remember how I said that one of like the main themes of this season really is taking Ahsoka and getting her to a place where she is confident, she is in charge, she can start being an authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she's becoming her own person. There is no place that is more clearly set than the season ender two-parter, Padawan Lost and Wookiee Hunt. Because when I was first watching these episodes, I'm like, and I honestly, my reaction was, I don't understand why you're ending the season with this two-parter.
Yeah, it was a really weird way to end things.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah,
it didn't make sense to me, unless you look it through and you say that, and they didn't do this as much as they should. But if you acknowledge that the arc of the season is Ahsoka has to figure out how to trust herself and be comfortable in command. If you take that is the main arc of the season, and I know that they didn't actually make that the main arc of the season, I'm not delusional, but if you see that that's what they were trying to do, then I think it makes sense to end the season with this episode, but because they don't really sell that, it's weird that this is the last episode of the season, right?
Yeah, it's not even like it's a bad pair of episodes. Like, it's obvious, it's painfully blunt again, but it's like, it's blunt in a good way. It's, I can get behind these characters. This is a survivalist story, and
yeah, they're doing a Most Dangerous Game story. We love Most Dangerous Game story. There's nothing wrong with a Most Dangerous Game story. That's fine. But like for the end of the season, for this is going to be the last 2 episodes you watch before you have to wait a year for more episodes. Like, it is not. It is very, and I mean, it is very low stakes for the show. Like, it's not like there's some huge consequence. I mean, obviously we'd be sad if Ahsoka got killed. I'm not a monster, but it's not like one of these some of these characters have to get a file to a place to keep something horrible to happen. It's just like, no, there are villains, they are hunting Jedi, and we've got to save the Jedi, and we've got to save the people. But that's it. Like, that's the whole story. It is a very simple, very contained story, and it's weird for a series about the whole Clone Wars to make their season bow out on this episode.
I actually have one thing that I will offer as a theory as to why it may have ended up being the finale.
Okay.
You haven't watched it yet, but you should know the first, the next season, its first story arc takes a bunch of episodes again. It's really... Yeah, it's this really drawn-out thing where for the first 4 episodes, while technically the last one is sort of separate, it uses a bunch of the same characters and is heavily implied to be happening basically directly after it. And I wonder if that's why, like, maybe this was meant to be, for something else, and this whole story arc was meant to be the finale, but then they moved it. I can't say that for absolute certainty.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
But it seems like there might have been like a rejigger, and it just was like, this fits the slot.
Okay, so they just threw this one in there. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I always like it when Chewbacca shows up. I mean, I'm a big Chewbacca fan. Chewie's the best. Everybody knows Chewie's the best. I'm not going to say I'm unhappy to see Chewie in an episode of the Clone Wars. I mean, it's this weird where he's like, the character who shows up in every timeline and meets every character is Chewbacca, of all people. It's kind of strange, but, I always love seeing him.
Yeah, to quote Solo, you look great! For being like hundreds of years old, he's just doing fine.
Yeah, like, 400. Oh, wow, yeah, you're doing great, Chewie. Very weird movie, Solo. I like it a lot, but I don't pretend it's not a very weird movie.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like, and that's the thing that I didn't recoil from. I didn't hate this at all, but I just like, it's a functional episode. It works particularly well. Like every escalation that you do the completely normal thing in this kind of a story of they have a series of plans to get away from these guys, and each plan gets thwarted, and they have to think on their feet, and like people don't trust Ahsoka at first, and she has to win them over. Like all of the beats of the story are fine, and they work great. But it's just such a small stakes thing to wrap up the season. And and your explanation makes way more sense than anything I could have thought of. So in my head, 100% you're right. I don't know that you're right, but in my head, 100% your theory is obviously the truth.
It's the best explanation I could potentially think of for it, because it's just super random otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It's like, it's such a random episode. It's comes completely out of nowhere and doesn't really go anywhere important. It's not like it turns out one of the people they were hunting, who was hunting them, is an important character for reason X, and him having been involved in this situation will pay off in scene Y or something like that. It's just, no, there's some bad guys. They're hunting Jedi. That's the show.
I think one of them is supposed to be Bosk, but
No, I think one of them is Bosk. No, one of them is Bosk, because I think he's named. Right?
Okay, because it's like, the Trandoshan's are one of those species where it's like really problematic in Star Wars that they never seem to not be evil. Like, I know there are Trandoshan.
Oh, yes. They're just all such villains.
It's so weird. And, like, I get it. On traditional, if you were actually born on Trandoshan, being a hunter and a slaver is just standard stuff like Batarians in Mass Effect. But even the Batarians in Mass Effect have more nuance.
Yeah, they really do. Like, and they are, again, they are the race that exists only so there can be cannon fodder in Mass Effect 2, right? Because they need there to be cannon fodder in Mass Effect 2, so it's like they created the Batarians just to be cannon fodder, but because of its Mass Effect, they can't help but try to give them character, and give them context, and give them depth. And I don't think the Trandoshans have ever had that anyone... I mean, I haven't read the novels. I've only read Heir to the Empire and like 5 other novels. Right? So I can't say that they haven't...
It's rarely happened, if anything. Like, Weequay, I think, have actually had more representation, for crying out loud. And literally the only thing anyone remembers about Weequay is that they're brown, really wrinkly, and that they have hair braids.
Wow. Okay. So right, it's we are not crazy to be recoiling against this a little. All right, good. I'm glad. I was worried I was being too PC when it comes to Star Wars races, but I do object to like, no, it's just a race of monsters and slavers who love murder. Oh, okay. So like, the whole race just are slavers who love murder? Yep, all of them, every single one. How does that like work as putting together a spacefaring civilization? And then you just shrug. It's like trying to imagine how Klingons ever invented a warp drive. I'm like, you've met Klingons, right? How did these guys ever put together a warp drive? It just doesn't make sense to me.
They just threw enough bat together.
Yes, exactly. They stabbed each other so many times that one of the stabbings accidentally invented faster than light travel. Okay. Sure, guys. Oh, man. Sorry, I was just flashing back to one of my favorite comedy series of all time. The Blue Stripe series that a guy did for Something Awful, where it was like tales of blue-collar people in Star Wars, in 1,000 different space universes. And my favorite was because it acknowledged something that I talked about, which factors into this, which is, so I've played, you've seen the movie Predator, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously you've seen Predator. And obviously you've played Aliens versus Predator. Right?
Yes.
You're familiar with the video game franchise Aliens versus Predator. Am I correct in saying that?
I reviewed the 2010 one and roasted it thoroughly.
Yeah, it's not great. But it's got a lot of Lance Henriksen, so I'm only going to complain so much.
Yeah,
but the point I'm getting
fair.
at is, this is something they didn't think about, but I had always thought about, and this writer I like acknowledged it in his little short fiction piece, which is, wait a minute. I've seen the movie Predator, and I've played Alien vs. Predator. And Alien vs. Predator is set 400 years after the movie Predator. But the technology being used by the Predators in Aliens vs. Predator is exactly the same as the technology being used by the alien in the movie Predator.
Yeah, it's like they're still using flintlocks.
Well, no, my point is, oh my god, and it's what I realized, Predators, the Predators we see coming to Earth and killing people, are that culture's equivalent of bow hunters.
Oh.
Huh. They're there's a whole giant culture of Predators who don't screw around with this nonsense, and we're just watching the kind of guys who, grab a bunch of primitive weapons and go to a place and, hunt tigers with a bow and arrow.
Oh gosh, the Predators that we're seeing are the paleo diet ones.
Exactly.
Who post on Instagram.
Yep. They are the bow hunters of the Predator race.
Oh,
That's
gosh.
what we've been watching this whole time. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
It sadly does.
Yeah. That's who these guys are. Fundamentally, the Predators are bow hunters. Just take that. I mean, as someone who lives in Pennsylvania, I think you will know what that means.
Oh, I know.
Okay. Now that I'm done bad-mouthing bow hunters, seriously though, some final thoughts on the season, which is, there are less episodes that are just, that impress, I really, just as a nerd who likes, Star Wars crazy nonsense violence, I was very happy with the Sauvage Oppress episodes. I really was. I understand what you're saying about the violence that whole stuff does to Ventress and the Nightsisters and her race, and how it kind of ruins the continuity of a lot of stuff you love. And I see why you would be upset, but just as someone watching the show, I'm just enjoying a badass Darth Maul style monster.
Oh yeah,
just wrecking stuff.
I think truly the most crucial thing that they missed, if they literally had done nothing else different, is the Nightsisters. While they do use the dark side, they've never taken a distinctive side in the war. Individual Nightsisters have,
right.
But as a culture, they do not give a tauntaun's ass about anyone.
Yeah, because they have their own connection with the Force.
Yeah,
they use the dark side of
else.
the Force, but they're not Sith. They're not Sith. They're not part of the Sith organization. They have their own relationship with the dark side of the Force, as I understand it. I mean, that's just me talking as someone.
Oh yeah, no,
who just watched the
they
episodes.
legitimately use the Force in different ways, and it's part of what made them cool. And I understand that there's a little stigma because they were introduced back during the Kevin J. Anderson days of the expanded universe, where things got a little bit weird. And sadly, one of their biggest introductions to most people was the Courtship of Princess Leia novel, which is infamously one of the most laughable novels of the expanded universe.
Well, it's a bad title, but I have not heard of this novel.
It gets really weird. I'll explain it to you at some point. But
another time, okay.
Long story short, after that, they kept getting built upon by other authors and improved and became this unique part of the universe. In fact, one of theirs ended up in Luke's Jedi Order.
Oh,
Hell, she ended up
cool.
being basically a full-on political leader who makes Satine look like she's sitting back eating bonbons.
Which is kind of what Satine is doing.
Yeah, so it's
it doesn't. You don't actually need to make Satine look that way. That's kind of Satine's.
Yeah.
It's kind of Satine's whole vibe, really.
Yeah, you're right there. You're right.
Yeah. Oh my god. Really, that's very interesting. Yeah, no, I've never read any of the new Jedi Order novels or comic books, and now I'm kind of interested. Although I gotta say, given what I've heard about the new Jedi Order stuff, I would understand why Mark Hamill would be mad that all of that stuff gets overlooked to just have, Luke Skywalker living in a hut on a planet for 20 years.
Yeah, he kind of is like, I heard that I had a hot wife, but then George said no, and then Disney said no, so now I don't get a hot wife.
I know! We loved your hot wife from those novels and comic books. She was evil, and you were evil, but then you both turned good again, and, it worked out well. I know.
These
No,
things
I mean,
happen.
Mark Hamill's the best. We all know that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so, and now's the big part. What do I have to look forward to in Season 4?
Season 4. Well, I
Battle
actually have my
lines.
computer back on, so let me just load it back up real quick to take a look, because there's, I know distinctly there is some stuff that just kicks ass, but also some stuff that really doesn't. I'm going to warn you, you're going to see so much more Jar Jar than you want to.
But you have to remember, any Jar Jar is more Jar Jar than I want to.
Oh, no, I'm serious here. We're talking
it's just tons of Jar Jar?
More than one story arc.
Oh, damn.
But here's the thing. We also get a really great Vietnam arc, which is one of the first times the show delves full on into a 4-episode arc, and it is easily the series height. Genuinely.
Okay, well,
great.
yeah, don't tell me any more then.
I won't tell you any more of that. They adapt one of the first story arcs from the Clone Wars' own tie-in comic series, and honestly, I like it because it's a decent one. There's one involving Cad Bane that I guarantee you're probably going to love. It's one of my favorites overall. We're going to see a little more of the Nightsisters, and definitely more of Savage, and
of course,
someone else. And there's actually one of my favorite standalone episodes is going to happen. And I'm going to just give you one brief teaser here.
All right.
Asajj Ventress and Boba Fett acting opposite each other.
What? Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, it is legitimately one of the best episodes of the entire season. It's this completely original standalone episode. You're gonna love that one.
Okay. I trust you on this one, because those are two unbelievably fun characters, so getting them in conflict, that should be pretty amazing. Okay.
Oh yeah, they have a lot of fun.
Okay, that's gonna be good. But yeah, I'm glad I'm gonna be seeing more Savage Opress. That should be pretty awesome, actually. Savage Opress.
Yeah.
Such a silly name. And plus, more importantly, it's freaking Clancy Brown.
Oh, I know, and you can tell that she's like, I'm Clancy Brown, I'm gonna gravel, and I'm gonna be Clancy Brown. And I love it.
It's all we need. All right, so before we go, where can people find your things that you want them to see?
Well, you can find me at The Escapist, where I do my column Second Look, where I take a look at all sorts of odd games. As of this recording, I just started the first part of my 2-parter on Mass Effect Andromeda, and I do all sorts of other stuff there, including, literally today, as of this recording, got to post a lovely interview with the fantastic Bill Watterson about what all went into making Lost Planet 3 and all sorts of mocap, and how apparently he's like half the cast of LA Noire and no one realized.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that factoid in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And before you ask, no, not that Bill Watterson. It's just a guy with the same name.
Yeah.
Which must be hell for him.
Yeah, it's gotta be tricky. It's definitely something that our commenters have been laughing at. And also, I will be getting active as UnabridgedGamer on YouTube very soon again. I know it's been on a bit of a hiatus. There was a lot of stuff for Not E3. We're getting back into it.
Okay.
I'm very excited.
I'm very excited too. Your last year Clash of the Titans was fantastic, and I can't wait. And I know this year's plans have been screwed up by COVID and The Escapist. But I can't wait to see what you have planned for Halloween.
Yeah.
So it should be a ton of fun. And for me, of course, this is my channel. Go find other stuff on my channel if you want more from me. I'm not going to tell you how to live. You've been to my channel before, hopefully.
You know how buttons work.
Yeah, there's buttons coming up. Click on them. There you go. But anyway, as always, thanks everybody for watching. The game I've been playing this whole time is the game I'm going to be playing for the foreseeable in podcasts like this, Hard Space Shipbreaker, an unbelievably good video game that, I'm going to give you an example of how good this game is. So it's, it's about being a guy who disassembles ships in orbit. And zero gravity, so it's zero gravity movement and a puzzle game about taking apart ships. Obviously, just hearing that, it's an amazing premise and there's nothing else like it. Here is how good this game is. So I completely fully maxed out one character. And then by doing that, I unlocked the ability to do permadeath. I make a mistake, get killed, you can't get cloned, you can't come back. That's it, you have to restart the game. So I did that. I got to the second highest level with that character, and I got killed by a glitch in the game. Destroying my character, and my response was, oh, okay, I'll just start another character. Didn't bother me at all, because that's how good the just play mechanics of this game are, that I was finding out I had lost my character just made me say, oh well, an excuse to play more of the game. That's how good Hard Space Shipbreaker is. So I recommend it to anyone. It's
anyone!
Anyone! Went way too far with that. Alright, so we'll see you back here for more Clone Wars. But until then, I'm going to say that's right. Au revoir.
Good day.